Alright everyone, let's get going with our next video installment using Stata. We're going to be covering a few things in this video. We're still not going to be doing any statistics yet. This is still going to be about using Stata and using Stata effectively. We're going to be talking about a few things right now that have to do again with data management. We're going to talk about getting help from Stata. We're also going to talk about the different types of data, the different types of variables, and we are going to talk about labeling variables and labeling values in variables. So this is going to be quite a bit of information for you, but I think very helpful information. The first thing I want to talk about is the help function that Stata has. And you might recall from our last video that we introduced this command describe. In fact, this output window is the same window I had open when I recorded the last video. So describe is the command, and one of the things that you can always do is you can just type into the command window help and then the name of the command you need help with, and you will get some help. Now I will say that the help files in here are very helpful if you know what you're looking for and if you know how to read them. So it is very important to know what you need. You'll see here a basic introduction, describe data in memory or in file. The syntax, and the syntax is basically the grammar or how you would actually type the command into the command box in the main window. And you can see to describe the data in memory, you would just type describe, or you can truncate that all the way down to D. And in the help windows, it'll show you what you can abbreviate it. So yesterday or in the last video, I showed you can abbreviate describe DES. Well, apparently you can describe it all the way down to D, or abbreviate it all the way down to D, and it will still give you that command. So the syntax is describe, and then a variable list, var list is a variable list. You might recall that we were able to do describe Carnegie and year. There's two different variables, so Carnegie year is our variable list. And then there are some options, some memory options. Now the reason why var list is in brackets here is because it's optional. You don't have to actually put the var list. As we saw yesterday, if we just describe it, hit enter, then it would just describe the entire data set. So anything you see in brackets are things that you don't necessarily have to type. Describing data in file, well, let's just skip that for now because this isn't about describing, this is about using a help file. So then you see these memory options. Anytime there are options, then you're going to get a list of options that you can use. And so the memory options that we have here are simple, so only the variable names, short, which is just general information, full names, numbers, and so anytime you have options, you're going to get a list of options. You see here there's file options, and so down here you're going to see file options. It's also going to show you the menu. This is the point and click way to do it. And so if you wanted to do this instead of using the command window and you wanted to do point and click, you could go to the data window in Stata and then go to describe data and then describe data in memory or in a file. And that would get you the same results. What you are going to find as you use Stata more and more is that point and click is actually very cumbersome, and there's not going to be a whole lot of times that you're going to want to use it. There's always going to be a longer description of what the command does, a description of all of the options that are listed up in that table, some remarks if there's anything important that you want to look at, describe, replace, and then usually there's going to be some examples. And so this will give you some commands that you can run, usually using a WebUse or a SysUse system data set so that you can see what's happening. So this is one way to get results. These stored results down here, I wouldn't worry about that right now. That's a pretty advanced usage of Stata. If you have any questions about those, though, you can always ask me. Now, You might sometimes want even more information, and there is always going to be some PDF documentation, which I'm going to get to in a few minutes because I'm going to use it when I talk about different types of data and variables. Now in class, we talked about 3 different kinds of variables, right? We talked about quantitative variables, right, which are basically numbers. We talked about ordinal data, which is categorical data, but where they have an assignment where the order matters. We talked about categorical data. If I could spell that properly, that would be great. Categorical data, which is qualitative data where order doesn't matter. Okay, and so what I want to show you now is how these different things are stored in Stata. So let's just open up the data browser from this data set. You'll see here we have a unit ID. Here we have year. Let's see, what else do we have? We have tuition and fees, and you'll see they're all here in black as numerals. That means that is stored as a quantitative variable. It is stored as a continuous numerical variable. All these cells where you see a period means that the data for that cell is missing. So for this particular observation 7, which looks like it is Livingstone College, we are missing data for these variables. This is how Stata stores missing variables for a quantitative variable. Here you'll see that institution name is in red. This is basically it's a text variable, right? It's not a number at all. And then you'll see here in blue, baccalaureate colleges general. Well, you can see from this bar up here that the actual data stored for this observation is 32. It has a numerical value to it, but this label has been assigned to the number 32. So this one will also be 32. This one is 31. This one is 31. So these are categorical variables where we have this number associated with this, but in this case probably order doesn't really matter a whole lot. Now you see institution size, right? Institution size under 1,000, 1,000 to 4,900. These also are going to have numbers because this is also categorical data. So the number for under 1,000 is 1. The number for 1,000 to 4,999 is 2. And so we would actually refer to this as ordinal data because the way this variable is created, it is categorical, but the order does actually have some meaning to it. These are labeled in an order that makes sense. So what I want to do is I'm going to actually describe a few of these variables. Let's see, I want to do institution size. I want to do institution name. Let's do unit ID. And then let's do Carnegie. Okay, so we can see here's institution size. This is our ordinal. Institution name is our text variable. Unit ID is a quantitative, and Carnegie is also it's a categorical variable. The way that Stata stores these are as bytes, longs, or strings, and there are a few others in there as well. The most important thing to remember is this string. Okay. This is saved as a string 64 variable, which means it's a text-based variable. Doesn't have any, it's not stored as a number. It's stored just as text. So this actually is in there as Lane College. And just so you know, it can go up to 64 characters. That's what the 64 stands for. This is the most important thing to know the difference of. The difference between a string variable and any other kind of variable. Because a string variable is not numeric. Even if it's all numbers, it's not numeric. And so you cannot do statistical analyses that require numbers using a string variable. Okay, so if you ever get an error message because you have the wrong variable type mismatch, you can describe that variable to see, okay, maybe I have this stored as the wrong kind of variable. This display format looks really funny, these percent signs and these G's and S's, and so this is what we're going to look at the PDF documentation for. Okay, so if you go into the help window in Stata, there's going to be this PDF documentation, and you can always click on that, and you're going to get this menu of all of these things that you can look at. Okay, huge help files about what is going on. Now, let's see here. I believe we want, tell you what, we're going to actually get out of there, and we're going to do help data type. Here we go. And you can usually get to these things in the PDF documentation. You can get to them from the help files. So I believe we're going to want data. Yes, and we want 12.5 numeric formats. This actually will show you what all those percent signs mean. Okay, so percent is the start of the format, and then you can tell it how long you want that number to be, whether you want commas, all those different things. This is where you can get that information. That is not particularly important for you to remember right now, though, so we're not going to spend too much time on that, but I did want to give you a little bit of an introduction to what this crazy display format is. Now you'll see that these variables, some of them have value labels and some of them have variable labels. Okay, the variable label is a really helpful way to put this in here so that it shows up in your commands and you can remember what the variable is, because INSTNM, it may not be very intuitive to some people what that means, and so you can put a label in there that's the institution name. Some of them also have value labels, okay, and those are those categorical variables where the actual data being stored is a number, but we want to have a label on there so that those numbers actually have some meaning for us. So I'm going to do a command here. It's actually the tabulate command, which we'll talk about more later, so you don't need to know what this does yet. And as you see, if we do tabulate institution size, we're going to get 4 categories, and we're going to get the frequencies in there. Under 1,000, 1,000 to 49.99, 5,000 to 99.99, and 10,000 to 19,999. These are not the actual data that are stored, right? Because we saw that in the data browser. The things that are stored are 2, 1, 3, and you can probably guess, if I can find one, 4. Okay, so if we were to tabulate this again with a no label option, we would get that same table with the same output, but with the actual data that are being stored in Stata. Okay, this is very helpful when you're creating new variables. Now, I just wanted you to see that you can assign these variables for now. We're not going to be creating any new variables today, so I'm not going to show you how to create these variables for the labels, or the label variables, or the value labels, but I wanted you to see that we can do it so that when we go to do it later, it's not surprising for you. So I think that's probably about enough for this video. A lot of information. Pretty soon we're going to be getting into actually starting to use this data commands that you might expect in this class. But first we just need to get comfortable with everything that we're going to see when we start to use the product.